It's safe to say that American Airlines has been adding some very high quality routes over the last several years. Today, we're going to talk about some clever additions that they've been adding to their network over the last couple months. Some of these are only going to be operated on Saturdays, but these routes are really unique and really add a new dynamic to American Airlines' route network. I hope all of you are excited for today's video, and with that being said, let's go ahead and get started, everybody. Alrighty guys, so American Airlines has certainly added some really cool routes to their route network, and I'm excited to talk about what's going on here for their network. I hope all of you are excited for today's video. Again, some really clever ads here, and some of these will only be on Saturdays, but it's really that significant, and really what we'll talk about here in today's video is that coast-to-coast element that I certainly think that's worth highlighting, especially on the regional jets as well. So we have 4 articles here from the Points Guy. Really appreciate all of their work, and we have some really cool pieces to the puzzle to evaluate today. So again, I hope all of you are excited for this. Let's just go ahead and get started. Our first one was from November 5 with American Airlines adding 4 new services with a route cover as well. So let's go ahead and dive into what this looks like. So I have a graphic here that I'll show you here in a moment, but nevertheless, just to get it through the text to get started. Our first route cut today is Chicago to Columbia, South Carolina. This route was only operated for about a year, which is kind of interesting, and this will be ending on January 8th. I believe it was on an ERJ 175, or sorry, 50-seat regional jet, so possibly even a CRJ 200. Not exactly sure, but certainly interesting to get to see that right there. Fortunately, though, there are some really cool new route additions, so let's go ahead and talk about those. The first one right here will be Los Angeles to Columbus, Ohio, as American Airlines adds several new flights to Los Angeles. This will take off on March 6th, and it'll be really cool as American Airlines, surprisingly, will have a monopoly. There's no Spirit or Delta on this service, so very cool to see that. Spirit did fly the service at one point, but that was terminated due to the pandemic, but American Airlines does think that there's enough demand to justify 172 seats a day on the service, as they'll utilize the Boeing 737-800 aircraft type. So it's pretty cool. I also want to note that unfortunately I can't get access to it, but this curriculum is the place where all the route news goes to prior to American Airlines launching it on the website. I think it's tied in somehow with the U.S. Department of Transportation, because American Airlines has to submit what they want to do to them first, and then obviously it'll come on their website later. But it's pretty cool to see the data that they have there, and it talks about the prices and the daily passengers. So pretty cool to see that, and overall I think it'll be a cool new addition there as well. So it will be that mid-afternoon flight that American Airlines typically has on their longer flights out of the Los Angeles market, so that'll be pretty cool. It gets into some details as well. There's also some limited flights that they'll be adding in February. We won't dive too much into these, but we do have some from like Boston to Columbus, along with services from Boston to Orlando and Fort Myers, so it's pretty cool to see those as well. So we do have 3 other really cool regional jet routes in the next one. This came out on November 25th, and the routes that they're adding here are very cool. Some of these are resumptions from previous offerings to my knowledge. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at what we got going here. So American Airlines will be launching new service from Chicago, to Bismarck, North Dakota, Boise, Idaho, and Phoenix to Appleton on Saturdays, which is very cool. So really cool to see that. So Appleton's been growing fast, so I think having the Saturday only Phoenix certainly makes a bunch of sense. And then as for the Chicago flights, Boise will have competition from United. I think they should do fine there. It's a pretty big market, so certainly eager to see how that's going to go. We'll also have Chicago to Bismarck, North Dakota, which I don't even think United operates that. So that will be a huge flight there. Regardless of the case, it's an underserved market, so that will certainly be very exciting. It's also worth noting that the flight from Appleton to Phoenix will be one of the longest American Eagle routes. This one will be nearly 1,500 miles and take roughly 3.5 hours to complete on the ERJ 175. However, later in the announcements, with more uniqueness on Saturdays, we might have a route that's even longer than that. So really cool to see that. And seeing the ERJ 175 continue to be a versatile aircraft. It is also worth noting, though, that American Airlines will be ending their service from Tulum in Mexico to Charlotte, which is kind of interesting considering that this route was added within the last year. It's a really up-and-coming destination for U.S. tourists, so I'm kind of surprised to see American Airlines cut it this early, but with various pieces to the puzzle, along with construction, it's kind of the part of the puzzle right now that makes sense for American Airlines to utilize. Here's another 2 new routes that American Airlines will add to the network here that they announced on December 18th. So here was what we got here. We're going to be going to Pittsburgh this time, as we'll have yet another service to Los Angeles. This time it will begin on April 4th. Yet another Boeing 737-800 aircraft type will be deployed, and once again will be that mid-afternoon time frame that it takes to complete the flight. So slightly longer than Columbus, but once again, these are more routes that are underserved. As of for this one, I believe Breeze Airways already operates it, and I think Spirit has at one point or another anyway. So it is really cool to see that American should be able to do really well. And yeah, this is Spirit Airlines' information right here, but unfortunately they did terminate the route, but they started all the way back in 2017. So it's safe to say that there's been demand for a service like this in quite a while. They're also going to be adding service from Chicago O'Hare to Spokane, Washington. This will be another really cool route. We continue to see the emphasis on those U.S. tourist destinations here in the summer, especially those ones in Montana, North Dakota, Washington State, you name it. So it's really cool to see Spokane getting another service. This one was also operated in the summer of 2021. However, they suspended it. So it's cool to see them going after United once again. So very similar to the Boise situation. And then most recently here on, sorry about the lag, by the way, I don't know why my computer really wants to do that. But anyway, this was on December 21st when we got news that American Airlines will be adding some really unique Saturday only services. Let's go ahead and take a look at these 3 new ones from LaGuardia, probably the most unique of the video today. So we're going to see American Airlines start service from New York LaGuardia Airport to Bozeman, Montana, speaking of that seasonal travel. Also going to have Kalispell, Montana gaining service on Saturdays, along with Calgary and Canada in Alberta will be gaining a service on Saturdays. So thinking about flying American from Calgary to LaGuardia is truly crazy to think about. Now, if you don't know, New York LaGuardia Airport has a perimeter rule. So excluding Saturdays, you can only fly up to, I don't know if it's like 1,500 miles or what the actual number is, but you can only fly so far on normal days of the week. However, American Airlines will be able to utilize the Saturday exemption to fly to these places, which is really cool. So these routes have certainly been tough for various airlines in the past. I think the article actually goes into detail about talking about how airlines like Delta and Spirit have tried some interesting routes in the past. However, this is currently the situation of what we got. And yeah, it's 1,500 miles with the exceptions with flights to Denver, which is kind of interesting, but it's a huge market, so it makes sense. And also flights on Saturdays do not have the perimeter rule. Now, it's also worth noting that American Airlines will add 2 additional Saturday-only services. The first one will be from Chicago to Halifax. This one will operate starting on June 21st, and this will go through October 4th. And then I believe this is the new longest ERJ-175 route for American Airlines, Dallas to Quebec. This will operate from August 9th through November 1st on Saturdays, which is a very interesting time of the year to do this. I'm kind of surprised they didn't try June through October again, but it is a really nice time of the year in Quebec during October and November, so you can definitely see it. But as you can see right here, the flight from Dallas will be American's longest E175 flight. This has an over 1,600 mile range, 1,655, and it'll take nearly 4 hours to complete. So yeah, some of the longest ERJ-175 routes in the world now be operated by U.S. carriers. United Airlines also recently announced Portland, Maine to Houston, George Bush on Saturdays this upcoming summer. That flight has a block time of 4 hours and 50 minutes on the return segment. American Airlines did also cut their service from Philadelphia to the New York LaGuardia Airport. There's so much competition on the city pair. It's also worth noting that it gets into the talk about slot squatting, which is quite an interesting concept, so you can read about it a little bit here if you're interested in more information, but certainly pretty interesting here to say the least. Here's the route map of all the new routes. I know it took a while to get to this because this is kind of the cool part, but I think this kind of goes to show what I talked about there in the beginning of the video. The coast-to-coast flying is certainly been of the utmost, emphasis here for American Airlines. Now, it is worth noting that several of these services will be on Saturday onlys, but the services from Los Angeles will both be daily, along with several of the services from Chicago to Boise and Spokane. Those will also be daily services. So I do think American Airlines is going to do really well here with their coast-to-coast flying. One major trend that I hope to talk about in a future video for American includes their emphasis on overnighting more capacity at some of their small hub airports. So it's been really cool to see them utilize the main line at night rather than during the day. And what that does for the main line is it opens up opportunities like these flights to be operated. So as you can see right here, Los Angeles to Columbus and Pittsburgh probably wouldn't be possible if they weren't overnighting more seats at these airports relative to, flying turns during the day. Now, once again, these are really long flights and take the entire day for the 737 to complete. It leaves Los Angeles at 9 and returns at 7 or 8 in the evening. So by default, the aircraft's going to be gone for the whole day. So American Airlines is confident that they're going to be able to get enough money out of each and every passenger to justify this demand. So, these are very long flights and certainly takes quite the effort and why they've been unserved for so long. So it's really cool to see American Airlines taking on this challenge and providing connections that we've really needed. For the Saturday only flights, considering that what's the word I'm looking for? considering how reduced American Airlines' schedules got on Saturdays over time, I certainly think that it makes sense to try some of these markets. I think it's better to experiment than to let the plane sit. Obviously, an experiment may not go according to plan, and how many of these will make it long term, that's a fantastic question. We'll have to see, but why not give it a try and see what happens? Who knows? Some of these flights, especially, the Chicago to Halifax one or Dallas to Quebec, could turn into daily services down the road. Who knows? I'm not saying that they will, but it is cool to just experiment and see what the bookings look like. Obviously they are confident that there's enough to do it on Saturdays, so why not give it a try? And absolutely, the Phoenix to Appleton flight could become a more regular flight down the road, especially in the winter. Now, it is a really long segment. You see how far that line goes across the map, but even still with that, there's still possibilities to see more expansion on that in the future. Here are the couple of route cuts that we talked about. Philadelphia to LaGuardia is just too short. You can't do it in my eyes. And then you got Chicago to Columbia, South Carolina, which that's a good market. So kind of surprised that they didn't want to stick it out, but who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if we see a summer service resumption on that service in the future. Same story for Charlotte. That was a really new route that they added to Tulum. It's a really up and coming, market there in Mexico, so possibly could see enhanced services from Miami and Dallas to compensate for that. So we'll certainly be interested to see what happens, but it's safe to say that American Airlines is making major moves with their coast-to-coast flying. United Airlines is really the one that's, really going for all the coast-to-coast, but American Airlines is really utilizing that E175 to its fullest here, and several of these routes are really going to go to show that. So I'm really excited for American Airlines' future. I do think that will be bright despite them being in, severe financial issues. They are trying to take precautions to move towards a more profitable operation, and I'm hopeful that they'll be able to do that here in the near future. So now let me know what you think of all these routes, and let me know which one you'd like to try. Personally, I think that flight from Calgary to LaGuardia is really unique, but all these are super cool. I do really like the Montana and those upper state additions. I think they'll be really great, and then Phoenix to Appleton's kind of a unique one too. So with that being said, that'll do it for today's video, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. I want to thank each and one of you for watching. My name is Director of Aviation. Take it easy, everybody. Stay safe. Trust the process. Do you love and love what you do? My name is Director of Aviation. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon as Director of Aviation is signing off.